Hi, Jim here, just dropping in before this week's episode to tell you about my latest movie, The Apocalypse Box. It's a horror film and I'd love for you to check it out. If you go to apocalypsebox.co.uk, you can find all the links on where you can watch the movie. Right, let's get on with this week's episode. How do you get a film on Netflix? And how do you get a distributor to fund your movie? Well, I caught up with Joseph Mbah and found out. Joseph's been through the ringer with feature films. After a bad experience on his first feature film, getting sales and distribution, he's now got to the point where he's getting his films funded by private investors and he's also getting distributors to fund the movies. I talked to Joseph about his process, where he started, how he's refined it, how he works on projects, his relationship with distributors. So he's very much got a relationship where he's interested in getting the film out there, working with distributors. One of Joseph's features also made it onto Netflix for a limited period. It's interesting to find out how that happened and how much they paid. We talked about how learning visual effects helped him move his career on, and we talked about artwork and trailers for feature films and getting them onto different platforms. Enjoy. Let's kick off where I kick off with most people. So talk to me about how you got into filmmaking.
I got into filmmaking after kind of actually in my senior year of high school. I did a high school project. My English teacher she wanted us to try something different. And I ended up making a short film. I got some friends together, I got some camera from one of my friends' dads, and I made a short film and I fell in love with the whole thing. And I was like, Mom, I know what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Wowzers. How
Yeah.
old did you say that was? How old do you think
I
you
was
were?
17.
17. See, now
Hmm.
I don't think I got that bug until 20s. So you've got a couple of years on me there. And where were you when you were studying? So am I right in saying you're Nigerian originally? Is that right?
Yes. I'm Nigerian. So at this point in my life, I was living in Palm Springs, California,
Right,
which is
right.
which is ironic because so I discovered filmmaking in Palm Springs, California. Like up to that point, I'll be honest, I didn't know people made movies. Like I
Mm,
just like I thought movies were a thing that they just existed.
yeah.
Um so when I discovered like filmmaking, I was in Palm Springs, California, but I ended up going to college in Arizona because my mom first of all I didn't know like I lived next door to like the filmmaking capital of the world.
Yeah.
So I was like I found a college. I think I was trying to go to a Full Sail University in Florida, and
Mm.
my mom looked at the prices and she's like, nah, I'm not I'm not paying for that. So I found a community college in Arizona, and then that's where I ended up studying filmmaking.
Wowzers. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I looked at your IMDb. You got a bunch of short films on there. You got feature films. What was the uh, when was the first time you were making something serious? So I imagine you probably left college wherever and started making short films. When was the first time you made something with a view to making money out of it?
Okay, so I would okay, so I have to kind of back. So the first my first actual attempt was my first feature film, but prior to that, I did what everyone did, which is like I wrote scripts. I had like this big ideas, big vision, like, oh man, I want to make the movies that inspire me. That's what I want to do. And I wrote scripts, and I basically sat around for like 6 years writing scripts, trying to raise funding. I did a Kickstarter that failed. I did like this whole teaser. I did a bunch of short films and everything, just trying to get someone to give me money or whatever I thought that was. I got scammed a lot doing all of that because I,
Yeah.
I would meet people. They're like, "Oh yeah, I got you. Just pay me a little something here, and then I'm gonna connect them, and they'll I'll pay them, and then ghost." Um, so I did that for like 6 years after like finishing my filmmaking studies. And then eventually I ran into a guy on Craigslist who he's a music producer. He goes by the Formula. He moved into Arizona because he had a record deal. The artist kind of things didn't work out, so he just wanted to get a fresh start. And while he was here in Arizona, he had an idea to start a TV show. And his idea was like, he's like, I want to get like an all Spanish girl group together, and I will film a TV show of like the forming of the group, and then at the end of it, we hope to get them a record deal, and then we'll make a whole TV show out of it. So that was my first time doing anything like professional. I was like, oh my god, this is it, right? And we like did like 4 episodes, and 3 of it aired in a local TV station, like the whole. So that was my first professional thing. But then after that, that didn't really go anywhere. But it kind of gave me footage from my reel. It gave me like the oomph to say, okay, I did something. So the next time I was on Craigslist again, a producer was looking for someone to do visual effects for his film. He's doing an alien movie. This producer, his name is Robert Conway. He was doing a feature film, is like a found footage alien film, and he was looking for someone to help him do the visual effects. So I reached out to him, and ironically, all my short films and the TV show that I had done up to that point all had like this visual effects elements to it. So now I had things in my reel that could say, hey, I could do X, Y, and Z. So I reached out to Robert, and I pitched him for me to do the visual effects. He liked my work, but I ended up not doing that. But during our conversation, I mentioned to him, hey, I got this camera. It's the Red One MX camera. He's like, what? You got the Red One MX? He's like, what? He's like, hey, he's like, well, you're not gonna do this VFX, but I'm working on another film that's funded by my distributor, and it was the era where like they were making all the Krampus movies, like Hollywood was making a Krampus movie, so his distributor wanted to kind of ride that wave and make a lower budget Krampus movie. So he hired me to be his camera operator on that film, and that was like that was the first time I was like, oh yeah, like this is it, like this is what making movies is about. Like we were in some abandoned hospital, and I'm pretty sure there's all kinds of diseases that you could catch there, but it was just the best time of my life. I didn't even care what I was getting paid. And then while making that movie, I met now my friend that I've been collaborating with for like the past, I don't know, almost going on 10 years now. And we're working on that film, and he was the AD and I was a cam up, and we talked a lot. And while doing that, I was like, hey, I really want to make a movie. He's like, me too, and then he's like, I have all these resources, I have this and I have that, and I'm like, I got this camera, and I know this person, I have this house, and then we just kind of looked at each other and like, why don't we just make a movie, so and he didn't know that I was really serious, because I've been trying for a long time. I was like, all right, we're gonna make a movie. So long story short, I wrote a script in like a week. Like I wrote like a 60-page script in like a week. I took all ideas from here and here and here, and I wrote a list of all the resources I had available. Like, oh, this person has a car, this person has a house, this person has a suit, this person has. So I wrote a list of all of those. I got my concept together, and then I was like, okay, what kind of movie can I make with all of this? And that's how I wrote my first film. And then within I would say like within a month, we were off and we're shooting my first feature, which is called Genesis: Fall of the Crime Empire. And it was like a sci-fi urban, it's just like a mishmash of like everything I had up to that point. And we made a go at it, and we made a movie, and it was awesome. It was a great experience. It wasn't a good, okay, it was the best movie we could make for what we had at the time. Okay.
Yes.
But as far as the experience, it was just amazing. I was like, now you're doing it. You're actually doing it. So,
making movies.
Yeah.
It's funny you stopped yourself there, because I do that as well. I look back on previous films and I'm like, oh, that one was terrible. But you're not really supposed to do that, are you? You're supposed to sort of big up everything you make so that everyone thinks everything's great. Even though the early ones are usually bad.
Yes.
So to touch on a few things you mentioned there. So the visual effects stuff, Where did
Hmm.
you, was that self-taught or did you study that?
Okay, so yeah, then take a step back a little bit back to the high school,
Mm.
right? So while I was making that short film, I stumbled upon a video on YouTube, right? And I was watching this video, and this guy, he bent down and then he just took off and flew into the sky.
Yep.
I was like, what the heck did I just see? So I started searching all the comments and I found that he used this software called After Effects. I was like, that's it. Uh, so I begged my mom. I was like, "Oh, mom, this is it. This is the thing that's gonna do it," you know. And she bought me my first copy of After Effects, and I just started like tutorials, and I found videocopilot.net,
Mm.
and I was looking at all the tutorials, and I was like, so yeah, so I was just doing, because that's my passion, is like sci-fi action. So I was like, finally I have the tools to, you know, do all these things that's in my head. And now every tutorial I would just practice it and do it over and over and over again, and eventually it just kind of kept growing, and I'm still doing it up to now. Like I get joy whenever I get a filmmaker contact me and say, hey, I have this visual effects thing, and he's gonna, you know, if he went to someone else, it would like cost him an arm and leg. I'm like, yeah, I got it, you know.
Mm.
So yeah, that's how I started
So
visual effects.
self-taught, which is good, and Video
Self-taught,
Copilot. So many people started on that. They've got
man.
a lot of people have got that to thank for their start in special effects.
Yes, yes.
So what was I going to ask you? And then the other question I was going to ask you, which people would bound to wonder, is how do you afford the camera? So you turn up with this red. Where do you get the money for that?
Ah, okay. So here's the thing, right? So the producer who I was working with, the music producer, the Formula, um, he had a business partner at the time, and we were, as we were moving along in the process of the TV show, we did the 4 episodes, and they were like, okay, I don't think we can do more of the episodes. Let's just cut to doing their music video and then try to get him a record deal. And then he turned to me and said, what's the best camera that's out right now so we can make something that is competitive? And I was like, and up to that point I had been looking at the red camera like religiously. Like I was
Mhm.
like staring at that thing. I was just dreaming of the day that I could get my hands on it. And here I was, someone asked me, and I was like, yeah, it's the red one MX, you know. And before I knew it, there the camera was. Him and his business partner put money together and they bought the camera. And the deal was that I will continue to work for them and basically over time own the camera because of the work that I've done, which
Right.
sounded like a great deal for me. And then, you know, they'll get to use it if they needed it, and I get to use it for my project without having to rent it, all of this
Mm.
stuff. So it just sounded like a win-win situation for me. So that's how I ended up with a red camera.
Right. And are you
Yeah.
still using that camera today, or have you moved to something else?
I've moved to something. I'm still in the red ecosystem, but my current favorite camera is the Red Epic MX, and I know Red have made all kinds of other cameras, but personally, there was a texture and a feel that the Red One MX had, and just the MX sensor in general. So I stuck with the MX sensor, but I like the functionality that the newer Reds have.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm with the Red Epic MX currently.
It's a
Yeah,
funny thing actually when you, because I've seen you obviously film as well as direct, is
yeah,
people do tend to stick to a camera, or at least a line. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I do a
yeah.
lot of sports videography, so I've ended
Uh-huh.
up using Sony's a lot. So I'm Sony,
Yes.
Sony, Sony.
Yep.
But then I'll use anything for a feature or anything I can get my hands on. Um,
Awesome.
so then you've made these feature films. How are you funding them? That's the one thing that people will be like, how's he raising finance to make the films? Are they
Hmm.
self-financed? Do you get investors? How do you manage that?
So the first film, so I'm gonna kind of walk you through it, and then I have to say, uh, so back to the camera situation. Let me talk about
Mm.
that for a second before we move on, because I feel like that is important when it comes to the financing side. So my first film, I made it with a red, but the relationship that got me the red fell through. Right, the business partners broke up, so
Mm.
the camera went with that
Oh,
situation.
okay, right.
So here I am. Actually, the relationship broke before I finished my film because I was shooting like every other weekend. So I'm like 6 months in. I have a couple more scenes to film, and then things fell apart.
Mm.
Uh, Luckily, I was still able to finish my film because of the other producer, Robert Conway. He ended up buying his own camera, his own Red. But needless to say, I was without a camera. I got to finish the feature, and then now it came time to make the second film. Okay, cool. Now back up to the first film. We made that movie because of the resources that we were able to put together, right? So actors worked for free. Crew members worked like it was the crew member was me, Nick, my then girlfriend, who's my wife now, anyone who we could get to come out and help out. Our sound guy Kenny, which we still work with Kenny up to today. He showed up for like one night and like did a scene for us for like $50 for the day. So we just kind of pieced it all together, and we spent, I'll say probably about I, initially I think we spent about 3,500
Mm-hmm.
of just money that we kind of pieced together, and most of it really came from Nick because remember I told you I got scammed a lot. Well,
Mm-hmm.
right before we made that movie, someone scammed me, so
Oh
I
no.
had no money. I had no money. So like the first half of making that movie, Nick, it was coming out of Nick's pocket. But
Mm-hmm.
here's the really cool thing I want to touch on that I think might be useful to other filmmakers who are trying to make their first feature is like I sat around for 6 years and I was afraid of making my movie because I didn't have the resources. Then, right before I made my movie, I ran out of more resources, financial resources. Then I still pushed forward and started making the movie, and something really cool happened. The lead actor in the movie, who is a dentist, he wasn't a professional actor at the time, he was getting into acting, he's a dentist. He has a friend who is an Emmy nominated stunt coordinator that went to high school with him. And remember, we're not in Hollywood. This is Arizona, right? It's a small world. Uh, he told his friend, "Hey, making this movie, and this is this guy." So he connected me with this stunt coordinator, and this stunt coordinator took a look at the dailies of what we're filming at the time. He's like, "Oh man, this looks not bad. This is okay. Okay." He's like, "I see what you guys are trying to do. Let me help you." So for all the stunts that we did in the movie, he basically came out and coordinated those stunts, and we learned a ton from him about doing stunts. And and as he was working with us, I just had this thought. I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? He
Mm-hmm.
would just say no if I asked him if you know anyone who has money. And guess what? I just took the shot and I was like, hey, Vince, we don't really have any money, and you've seen what we're doing. Do you know anyone who has money who can help us? And he's like, let me look into it. Long story short, he was able to partner with an entertainment attorney who is his friend, and they were able to put money together, and they became the investors in the movie to help us get through the finish line. So we had done all of this, a lot of our money, and then they came in with I think like 2,000 or like $5,000 worth of funding, which was like for us at that time, and that's how we were able to make the first one.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything magical in the sense like, oh, we got investor. We just kind of went along the journey.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, and then for the second film, we had made the first film, and people have seen it up to this point. They were like, oh, okay, all right, well, yeah, you said you're gonna make a movie and you made a movie. And the thing that happened again. We sat around for months, right, pitching to people, trying to convince them, writing scripts on spec, and they were like, yeah, we're gonna make it. And at some point I realized, oh, here you go again. You're gonna sit around again for another few years, and you're not gonna make another movie. So I was like, okay, what's the best thing I can do? Let's just repeat the process that worked the last time, but this time try to do it better. So me and my wife, we took on this like seasonal Christmas tree hanging job, and we saw that if we worked that job for the whole season, plus that it would give us enough money to buy a new camera and also put some money aside to make the film.
Mm.
And that's exactly what we did. We worked, and I made a video on YouTube, shorts, talking about how hanging Christmas tree lights sounds like a good job until you realize that every tree in Arizona wants to kill you, and people like to hang lights on cactus trees. You
Oh no.
realize, oh man, that's why people don't have this job, and
Yeah.
that's why they pay you. So so we did that, and we were able to put the money together, and then we repeated the same process. We just wrote a movie better this time, but based off of the resources that we had available plus the money that we were able to save. And then we went out and we shot the movie, and this time it was significantly better because it was more organized. We have learned a lot. We actually, one of the things that we do that I might suggest for other filmmakers is, don't write your movie and then try to cast your lead. Find a lead that's willing, that buys into your vision, that is willing to go on the whole journey with you, and then write the movie around them. Know that they're committed. So like I will find actors while I'm working on other sets, and I will build relationship with them, so that when the opportunity came along, because actors want to work, actors want to lead a film, actors want, the same opportunities we all want. But if they believe in your skill set and your vision, then when it's time for you to make your movie, they're more likely to subscribe to your your path. And that's what happened the second time. The lead bought into the idea of making this action thriller. So I was able to, like, give him some back end points, and being clear and honest. Hey, this might not make any money whatsoever. Like,
Mm.
the chance of it making money is slim to none, but at least we get to go on the journey. We get to make, a movie together that we could both look at and be proud of. So we went, so we casted him, then we wrote the script, then we put everything together, then we went out and shot the movie, and I think we shot it for like 21 days. And then this time, like I said, it was better. I became a better, better at doing stunts, better at filming, just better in general. And I was able to find another stunt coordinator who is local to Arizona, who was able to work with me on the film, and he took some back end points and some upfront pay, and then we just able to put the whole thing together, and then we made the second movie. And surprisingly, now the part of this conversation that I hope we get to touch on is the distribution side of things,
Oh
because
yeah.
that's the part, yeah, that most filmmakers don't think of, but I think of distribution first,
Yeah.
right? As part of the resources that I had, and I learned that from Robert Conway. Like, he told me, look, distribution is everything, and this is how you go find distributors, and
Mm.
this is how you talk to distributors, and these are the battles you need to fight, and these are the battles you're never going to win, so don't do it. So if I get a chance to talk about that, I would love to, because that ultimately led to the second movie ending up on Netflix for like
Mm.
6 months, which,
Mm.
like, changed it. Did it for me. I was like, oh my god, when Netflix is huge, right? And I thought it was going to, like, be life changing, in a significant way. But it was life changing in the sense that it just opened a couple more doors
Yeah.
that allowed me to take the next couple of steps into my journey. So that's to answer the question of how we funded the movies, we were just scrappy,
Yeah.
whatever it took, whatever job we needed to take, however creative we can get to fund the movies so we could keep making movies. We did. And then eventually the fourth and the fifth film, sorry, the third, fourth, and fifth, we didn't have to pay for it because of relationships we've built with distributors.
Mhm.
Really, that those three films were financed by distributors, at various capacities, because just the producer I was talking about, Robert Conway, his distributor funded his movies, and he gave us the opportunity to produce and direct two movies for him. And then the distributor who distributed my second film gave us the same opportunity to make and like a sci-fi alien movie for them. And that was a wonderful experience, because here's someone who's like, hey, I trust you, here's some money, go make something for me. And we did that. And then and then it's just we've been growing from there. And then this last film we just made is the first movie that is fully funded by an investor that just wrote a check and said, here you go. So it took some time to get here. It took time and being scammed and learning and growing and trying different things, but eventually we got to the point where someone, just off the strength of the what we've done so far, was able to just write a check and say, here, go make a movie, and I hope it does well. So yeah, that's it. That's how we got here.
Right. So a few things to pick up from there. So you saying about putting a list together of all of the things you've got and making a film based around them. That's a really good tip, because like you say, some people, they go, oh, I set a scene in a palace, and then you haven't got a palace, but you might have access to a cab or something. So that's a brilliant piece of advice. Basing a film around an actor, I've not done that, but I do feel like I've worked with the same lead actress on 2 films, and I do feel like doing that, knowing it's someone friendly who you really want to work with, is a great way to start a shoot. And also the other thing is, which is great advice, is if you can't get funding for a film, and it's always a bit dodgy using your own money, but if you really want to make a film, you've got to just go for it. You can't wait around forever. You've just got to get that thing shot. And like you say, things just sort of, once you've set the shooting dates, things have to fall into place. They just do. So you just have to make sure they do. So what I was going to ask you about was, the distribution thing's interesting. The fact that you've been working with distributors before the film's finished, sort of before you've even started shooting. With sales and distribution and those movies you've made, have you made money on them, or do you make the money when you make them?
All right, so to unpack, thank you for the question. So to unpack that a bit, the first movie, it was exactly what you would expect, and I will never. I'm not gonna. I was angry for a while about it, but I'm no longer. So I'm not gonna say anything too negative about it. But the person who distributed that film knew exactly where we were in our journey. He knew this was our first film. He knew we didn't have any other option except for him. So he kind of gave us the absolute bottom of the barrel deal possible. So the movie went out into the world and it made money, but we got the classic, oh, everything is into the marketing budget. We spent, you made $10,000 and we spent $50,000 on marketing the movie. So it was that kind of deal. So we didn't make money on that film in terms of us actually seeing any money back, but the report said that it went out and sold. And then the second movie we actually made money on, and the money came in 2 ways. Like Netflix, the way Netflix works is they give you a licensing deal. So they'll say, hey, I will pay you which is literally what they paid us. They say we'll pay you $4,500 for 6 months.
And that was that on the platform in all of America, or was it? I don't know what Netflix is like over there. Is it locked to certain areas, or are you talking the whole of the US?
I think it was the whole of US. I think anyone who had Netflix in the US was able to pull us up, because I made posts on various Facebook groups, and people across the US pulled it up and watched it and sent me a screenshot. Yeah. So
which film was that? Just so people can look at it. Which one was that?
Expo is it's this one.
Right.
That one.
Expert. Yeah. Okay,
Expo.
carry on. So you got money. Netflix pay an amount to license it for a period of time, and then maybe other territories bought it. Did they?
We had some other streaming revenue. It was on TV, like a small amount on TV, but really the bulk of the money we made was after everything was said and done. The distributor who distributed the movie bought it from us outright.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting.
Right. So we made $4,500, but then he also bought the whole movie from us and paid us a lump sum amount for the whole movie. So we no longer own the rights to the movie, but we got paid and we made money back, and it felt really incredible to go back to the people who supported me and say, hey, that point I gave you that could have been nothing. Well, here's a little bit of something.
Mm.
Um, so that's what happened for the second movie. Uh, the third and the fourth movie we haven't made money on just because of the way that deal was structured. It's not directly to us. Is it was a whole different thing. Uh, the the mm, the fifth movie, which is Alien Snipers, which is the one that the distributor gave us money to make. We
Mhm.
made money on that one because of that was like our direct deal with the distributor. That movie ended up on Walmart, and it did well in Walmart, so we got some money from that as well. So yeah, we've made money.
Mm.
We and then surprisingly, so after now the first movie, the rights expired, so we took it back from that distributor, and I've been holding it up until this very moment right now. Actually, my current agent messaged me. Actually, we talked like a couple days ago, and she told me that she was able to get it placed on Tubi. So
Right.
Tubi
Okay.
picked up my first movie. So you might still go out and have another life afterwards, and might make some money. Who knows?
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, so that's it with regards to making money on the films.
Well, you've done better than some. Definitely. Even seeing the return, and like you say, it's not unusual to get screwed over in your first movie.
Yes.
Happens to everybody. It's like a rite of passage, unfortunately, in filmmaking. Um, um, so the Netflix thing's interesting. Walmart's interesting. One thing I did notice about your staff. So, do you cut your own trailers? Is that you doing that, or are you getting marketing people to cut them?
So that's one of those advices that I got early on is like
Mm.
your trailer and your artwork, don't fight it. The distributor has the final say. And I leaned into it. So I cut the trailer, but I cut it based on their specifications. So I will cut the trailer initially, like before I get a distributor on board, like to actually give us a deal. I will cut the trailer based on what I know they might want to see, which is they want all the best stuff. Like they would like say, don't save anything, just give all the best stuff in the trailer. And I would do that, and then they would come in and they would give feedback on how to recut the trailer. So I'll recut the trailer based on their specification, and then the artwork, they whatever they do with I just leave it alone.
Yeah, that's interesting
Yeah.
because what I was going to say was when I looked at your projects, I was like, oh, these trailers are pretty good. Not that indie
No.
ones are bad, but I was like,
Mm.
oh, these trailers are pretty good. So it makes sense to me that you've consulted with a distributor
Yeah.
because they feel like a finalized trailer. They don't feel like an indie
Awesome.
trailer.
Yeah.
And again, the posters look like posters you'd see in Cannes that have had a little bit of money spent on them. They don't look like you've created them. So I can
Awesome.
see. So that's maybe
Right.
for a filmmaker because sometimes it is tough when it's your project. You can become a little bit protective over how it is portrayed to people, whether that be the trailer or
Yes.
the artwork.
Yes.
I mean, even have your films always kept the same title? Has that ever been changed when you've gone to release it?
So yeah, yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
I the titles of my movies, I've been fortunate enough to not have them change because again, it's one of those things that I try to approach from a marketing and distribution standpoint. Like I think, what's the best title that I think a distributor is going to want? What is the title that's going to get the most attention? And then still being open to know that, what, they might still change it. So
Mm.
like the I think one of the movies called Battlefield 2025. It wasn't initially Battlefield 2025. It was some I think it was called Alien Invasion because
Mm-hmm.
we thought Alien Invasion is straightforward. The distributor is gonna simple title. He knows what to do, but he wanted to call it Battlefield 2025, and that's what we went with.
Yeah.
The Alien Sniper was Alien. It was Alien Sniper, but then the distributor said it's a female, so they wanted it to be Alien Sniperist, which we joked about for a long time. And then so we went with that title, and that title even was dubbed in Spanish. So it has a Spanish title as well. So it kind of changes depending on whatever the distributor is wanting to do, you know.
Yeah.
So we have a movie right now called Whispers Bind. You might get to the end of the whole journey and they change to something more market and appropriate, and it be whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I'm not tied to those things. Anything that helps sell the movie, I wash my hands off.
Yeah.
The only part that I get personal and technical is the actual movie and the actual experience. That's the only part I say, please don't touch. Everything else, have fun.
Up for
Just sell the
grabs.
movie.
Yeah. 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 Not a bad attitude. Is
Yeah.
sniperess a word or not? Or is that a
No.
word? No. It's a good one. No, but I looked at it. I was like, Alien Sniperess. You see the picture, you know exactly what it
Yeah.
is. But yeah, not a word.
Right.
But it doesn't matter.
No.
It
It doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That's it. Yeah.
so, what else was I going to ask you? What's been the hardest part of the process for you? Filmmaking, funding, distribution, sales, marketing. What's the toughest bit?
The toughest part has been um like I have like I have an idea of how I want the process to go in terms of like having it be enjoyable, having it be kind of a smooth process from the start to finish. And you know, it's been difficult to get it to this point because like at the end of the day, you know, we understand what this is. You know, you're probably not going to see any money for a long time. When it is all said and done, I always just want to walk away and say, hey, I had a great time. The people that I work with had a great time, and we made something we could be proud of. And that had been the most struggle from the second movie on, is because every person, every distributor you work with, every producer you work with, they hire you on because they like what you've done, but they bring on their own processes, and even though your our process is what helped us do those other things, it will kind of clash with their process. And that, I said, honestly, that's been the most difficult part, because the rest of it really is just, I knew there's growing pains that come with it. I knew I don't know what I don't know. And yes, you will get screwed over. You know, you might not like this, you might not like that, but I just wanted to refine our process so that I can just enjoy the whole process of making movies and be able to look at the things and actually just be able to sit down and watch my own movies and not feel like, oh my god, this is terrible. Like, again, I know I make low budget independent movies, I know what they are, but I just want to be able to just fondly sit down and watch it and enjoy the whole experience of making it, and just say, yeah, I made a movie, you could go check it out. And
Yeah.
I would say that was the most difficult part. But as of this last movie, I think we've achieved that, because we walked away and we looked at each other and we're like, did we just make a movie? I'm like, yeah, we made a movie, and it didn't feel like anything that it had felt like in the past. So
Yeah.
yeah,
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 that's a good point. And it is tough because you can get carried away, can't you, when you're making a film? You can get tunnel vision and
yes,
stress. You can get very stressed, and you
yes,
forget to enjoy it. You forget the
yes,
reason that you actually do it in the first place.
yes.
So then give me that's the negative. What's your favourite part of filmmaking? Is there a sort of favourite time of day? Is there a favourite shot you love to do, or a favourite type of scene you like to direct, or what's the sort of most fun part for you?
You know, the most fun part is being on set. Like, the most fun part of the whole thing is being on set and collaborating with the people that you're working with, and enjoying each other's company in a way that is, yeah, of course stress will come, sure, right? But it's like just being present, creating something together, laughing, being scared that something is not working, you know, figuring it out. Like, the whole community experience is my absolute favorite part of making a movie, like,
Mm.
hands down, hands
Yeah.
down. Editing, I enjoy editing, but editing is lonely. Okay, it's
And editing and writing is lonely for
yes,
me.
it's
Okay.
lonely. Like, it's just me and my in and the footage, or me and my thoughts. And yeah, I can't wait to like escape either and get to set and start, you know, playing with people. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's for me, it's also that. if you've spent 6 months or however long writing a script, and then you get to set and you've say like the last one I made had maybe like 8 people on camera at the same time. You say action, and then suddenly
Right.
these things you've just thought of exist, and they're real
Right.
people
Yes.
playing out your
That.
little
That.
fantasy
That.
in front of you. Is just
Yeah.
amazing to me, and I
Yeah. It's
always,
amazing.
yeah. And they take it, they take the character that you wrote, and then they kind of turn it into something else that's even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, marvelous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
feeling.
I had a on this last film. His name is an actor. His name is Greg Lutz, and he played the pastor. And I had I had this. I've lived with this character in my head for a long time. But when he came in, he just brought a whole new life to it. So like every day, I kind of watched him just like do something cool with it. So it was beautiful just to just be there and just watch this thing take a life of its own. I'm like, wow, So yeah, yeah,
Nice,
awesome.
nice. And with your movies, have you done festivals? Is that part of your process? Do you enter festivals? Is it worth it? What was your advice on that, do you think?
So after all these years, if you asked me this question a year ago, I would have told you absolutely not. I don't do festivals. And the reason why I hadn't done festivals is because I chose a particular path. I saw like my whole deal has always been like, how do I get closer and closer to dealing directly with the decision makers, the studio heads, the platforms, the people that make the decisions like that. I was like, okay, going the festival routes and all of those things is just like going through another door to go through another door. I just saw that as the longer. So I was like, how do I get more direct? So going the distribution route, dealing with distributors felt like the right path for me. And it still has proven to be the right path because every film I get a bit closer and closer and closer. So I had and then I tried film festival. Like I tried some local film festivals. I didn't get in. It just felt like it was like a club, so I thought at the time. But I've since changed my mind about it because I've talked to other filmmakers who that is their path. They understand the film festival route. They know how that whole system works, and it works for them. So I say it's just you have to pick the path that works best for you, if and do your research. It's like see where you're trying to go, research what that will take, and then just pick the path and stick to it and learn as you go. So film festival is viable. Going direct to distributors is viable. Even self distributing is viable. It just depends on what you yourself are looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So then I was going to ask you a couple of my fun questions.
Mm.
So the first one is, if you could reboot or remake any film, what would you choose?
Mm. Man, okay, and I have to answer this, but I'll just before I answer it, I'm gonna say it's so difficult because any movie that I love, I just want to leave it alone.
Yeah,
I just
that's a good
like
policy. I mean,
I just
pick a
yeah.
bad one then. Pick a bad one because like some people
Okay.
say to me things. Somebody said Avatar or Back to the Future, and I was like, "What are you talking? How are you going to make those better movies?" So
Yeah.
you could pick a bad one by all means.
Okay, man. Okay. What movie would I reboot? You know what? Green Lantern. If I had the chance, I would go back and redo. I would do a different Green Lantern because
Mm.
Green Lantern is one of my favorite superheroes. I would I not to say that I'm the guy to do it, but I would
Yeah,
say if I had the choice, I'd say please do it, make it better.
yeah,
Somebody make it better.
yeah,
That's what I would do.
yeah.
But yeah. So that's my answer. Is Green Lantern.
Green
Yeah,
Lantern. Okay. And
yeah.
have you got a motto or a mantra? Have you got like a thing you say to yourself on set or something that kind of gets you through it?
Um, yeah, it's as corny as it may sound because it sounds like Nike, but just go and do it. Like every for all the time that I've sat around and looked at the thing that I know I should be doing, and whether it be fear or hesitating, whatever it is, just going and doing it and starting from the smallest part you can has always proven to be the thing I need to do, because as long as I start doing it, things kind of fall into place. So I would just say, I always say to myself, when I'm done staring at it, just go do it. And then I start.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you'd like to hear from more industry professionals, how they got into the business and how you can do the same, or you just want to listen to some cool stories from movie sets around the world, then please do subscribe to the Honest Filmmaker podcast.